All right, we're going to get started here with the program in just a second. Hopefully everybody's got a chair, comfy spot to settle in. All right, we'll get going here on our presentation from the Minnesota Digital Library. We're excited to welcome Stephanie Hess tonight. She is the digital curator for the Minnesota Digital Library. She has a background in local history and exhibit development. She oversees the digital storytelling projects for MDL, conducts K-12 educational outreach, and manages MDL's social media accounts. The Minnesota Digital Library is made possible in part by the people of Minnesota through an appropriation to the Minnesota Historical Society from the Minnesota Legacy Amendments Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Let's welcome Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. And as you know, I'm here to talk about the Minnesota Digital Library. And it's this amazing free resource that has a lot of Nicollet County history in it, so I'm excited to sort of get into what exactly that means. So today, this is kind of the order of operations for today. I will start out by kind of explaining what the Minnesota Digital Library is, kind of demonstrate how you can find things in MDL. I'll do an overview of several of our digital storytelling projects, which are near and dear to my heart. And then we'll do a couple of show and tell highlights from the Nicollet County Historical Society. And hopefully, if there's time, we'll do a little live demo search so we can get some audience participation at that point and questions and answers at the end. So let's get started. So how many of you have heard of the Minnesota Digital Library before tonight? Oh, excellent. That's great. If you haven't heard about it, we basically run this website, which is a free, searchable, basically a database. So you can use the search bar on the top, or you can browse by topic to find materials on the history and culture of Minnesota. And these have been contributed to us by organizations around the state. We digitize it for them. We put it on the website. They get a copy. You get a copy. And then everybody can find it across the world, which is pretty cool. In addition to the digital collection materials, we also have a lot of curated guides and other entry points to the collections, because at this point we have over 60,000 items, and that means hundreds of thousands of individual pages. And so sometimes it's kind of hard to know where to start. So that's where a lot of the storytelling projects have come to play. And that includes primary source sets, timelines, story maps, and online exhibits. So, over 20 years ago, a group of organizations in Minnesota decided that we should have a single place where people could go to find information about Minnesota in a digital format. So this list kind of shows you the different types of contributing organizations that we have. We started with 51 contributors, now we have over 200. And we have content representing all 87 counties of the state. So it's not just the Twin Cities, it's not, Rochester, it's not Duluth, it's all the counties, which is pretty cool. So I wanted to say over 20 years ago is when this happened. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary last year, which was to commemorate when our website actually launched. But we started accepting projects and having the idea of what the MDL could be back in 2001. So it's been a long time coming, and it's been evolving ever since. We always try to improve it and get it even better. So one of the founding contributors that we have was the Nicollet County Historical Society. And that's pretty exciting, as you can see. This is the page on the MDL website that is what we call a contributing organization landing page. So all of our 214 contributors have a page like this with basic information about their organization, contact information, a link to your website, and then my favorite thing is this little blue button here, because that gets you direct access to everything that your organization has contributed to MDL. So we also have this little logo that we made last year to sort of commemorate that you were a founding contributor, which is something to be proud of. I believe, I'm trying to remember, I think the first project that Nicollet County Historical Society did with MDL was like 50 photographs, which was a really fun way to start. But it has grown to include maps and documents and oral histories and all sorts of things like that. So it's a very nice, large collection. We are happy that your organization is one of our contributors. So with the Minnesota Digital Library, that's our address right there, just MNDigital.org. There are many ways that you can access the collection in there. So obviously you could browse by topic, by contributor or format. We have a search bar on the top that you can search any sort of term you want. You could put in a name of a person or of a town or of a school or even something like barns or banks or something like that. And then you just would get a bunch of search results that you could look at. You can narrow your results with what we call sidebar facets. So that includes things like type or year. There's a year range slider that you can use. There's location facets you can also narrow. And then you can really find what you really want. We also do have an advanced search. So if you wanted to search for, say, barns in Nicollet County, you could do that. So that's also an option. And every material has its own item record. So that I will show you in a minute and what that looks like. But there's lots of information there. And if you like that one, you can find similar ones by clicking on hyperlinked common terms, like a keyword might be highlighted, and you can click on that. Everything that is a text or an audiovisual thing, nearly everything I should say, has a transcript. So if you're having difficulty reading the cursive, I know some people have a hard time reading cursive these days, you can read a transcript. And that also is searchable too, so you can search the transcript to see what you need. We have a new function called My List, so if you want to make a list of barns in Nicollet County, you can do that as well. So for example, if I wanted to see what's in the Nicollet County Historical Society, this is basically what a search result would look like. So as you can see, there's thumbnails of all the images that you could look at. You can click into them and get information about that particular item. This green thing over here, I feel like Vanna White. These are what we call the sidebar facets. And so as you can see on the top, there's a type that you can search by. So if you only want to look at still images, which is like photographs, postcards, those sorts of things, you can click on those. If you want to just look at text items or maps or mixed material, which is more like a collage or a scrapbook, or notated music. This particular collection doesn't have AV materials like a recording, a video or an audio recording, but many of our other contributors do. But then also you can look at physical format, date created, location, and then this one's kind of handy. This is subject headings, and so if you wanted to narrow it down to schools or something like that, you could easily do that. I'll go back over here now. And this, if you clicked on one of those items, you would get a page like this. So every item has its, like I said, item record page. At the top of every item record is this black box, which we call Universal Viewer. And the Universal Viewer, you actually can zoom in. You can rotate it if it's, I don't know, if it's 90 degrees off, you can easily rotate it. You can also click this little thing here to have it be full screen, which is really handy if people are wanting to use it maybe in a classroom or a presentation. You can make it full screen and really zoom in and get lots and lots of details, which is super helpful for things like aerial photos or maps or things like that, and you want to get in and see all the details. And then below each Universal Viewer screen is all the information. And this information comes from our contributors. So we digitize the things for the museums and the archives across the state. But then their role is to provide the information. And many of you already have this information in your collections databases. So it's just a simple matter of copying and pasting what you already know about who made it, what it is, the date, location, that kind of stuff. And so all the information from your organization gets put below the image, and so people who are researching it can find all the information they need about your items. And this doesn't show it, but occasionally they'll have we'll have like keywords down here, and that is what I'm talking about when it's hyperlinked. So maybe it's banks or barns. I keep talking about barns. But then you would be able to click on that and see more barns. Another thing, on the right over here, these are related items. And so a lot of times, if you find something you like, you'll find another thing you also like in the related items bar, which is kind of fun. We're working on making this a little bit more user-friendly. Right now, they're just thumbnails, so you don't necessarily know what that is. We're working on fixing that. We try to improve it as much as we can all the time. And then this is our list function, which I can demonstrate in a little bit when we do our demo. So, just wanted to give you an idea of what a record would look like before we get into things. I also want to note that everything that is in the Minnesota Digital Library also gets shared to the Digital Public Library of America, so it's even more and more people can see it. MDL is one of the founding contributors of the DPLA, and we are one of the major contributors as well. So, because we participate in this organization, all this sort of local and state history gets shared. We get to lift up this content even more, and it gets shared with organizations like the Getty, the New York, let's see here, my notes, I can't see. New York Public Library and other states in the union all are together in DPLA, which is pretty cool. This is an example of one of the records from DPLA. So MDL basically acts as a pipeline. So your materials from Nicollet County go to MDL through the pipeline to this other website. And so all the information you see on the bottom here, this is all that metadata that's already in MDL. If you want to see the full item, that link goes to our site. So we get even more web traffic. Your collection items get even more viewers because we're in this nationwide, what they call an aggregator, which basically means they bring all the stuff together and they share it, which we are statewide and they are nationwide, which is pretty cool. Obviously, we started with 51 contributors. We had just a couple hundred items. Now we have over 60,000. It's hard to find what you're looking for. So we thought, there's ways we can sort of arrange and package these materials that tell a better story, and it's a little bit easier to access the content. So the digital storytelling projects that we've created include primary source sets, story maps, timelines, and then online exhibits as well. We understand it can be very difficult to find materials sometimes, and so we wanted to make it a little bit easier, especially for students and teachers and anyone else who wants just to learn a little bit more, but not have to work too hard to find the information, because everybody's time is limited, and we understand that. So the first digital storytelling projects that MDL created we call primary source sets. And the idea behind a primary source set is you have a topic in Minnesota history or culture. You give a little topic overview just to provide context, the who, what, where, when, how, kind of just basic details about mining on the Iron Range or Main Streets. And then there's probably like 15 to 20 sources from MDL that fit that topic or that illustrate that topic. And then that also is packaged with discussion questions, related resources, bibliographic material, and sort of suggestions for what else you could do with these primary sources. And so you can imagine that they're often used or intended for use by teachers and students in classrooms, because that's a good way to kind of get into this historical content. But it's really for anybody. If you have a book club or neighborhood group who really wants to learn about the lumber industry in Minnesota, which, why wouldn't they? It's cool, trees. You can easily do that. It's not, if you're like, I'm not a student, I don't think I can use this, that's not true, anybody can. So it just was one way to kind of get into the stories that we're trying to tell in a nicely, easily packaged thing. And because I also come from a library background, I love having the bibliography, because then you can point people to even more resources to learn even more. So that's cool. And then some of our other fun stories that we've been working on lately are, the column story maps, which is basically sharing materials from MDL's collections, but placing them on an actual physical location in the state of Minnesota. So this particular example is a story map on the Carnegie Libraries of Minnesota. So it's not all of them, because we don't have all of them in MDL, but there's tons of them that we do. And so you can scroll through a map and you see the little red points, and then you can click on that point and you can learn about the Carnegie Library that was there. I picked the St. Peter one because we're in St. Peter. But we have, let's see, I think we have about 5 individual story maps, and then we have a couple that are part of a story map collection. So I did a story map collection on the Iron Ranges of Minnesota. So there's 3 individual Iron Range maps, excuse me, but it's in a collection together. So you can learn about the Cuyuna, and you can learn about the Mesabi, and Vermilion if you want. And you see pictures of the maps, and they're pinned to the actual location in the state, which is kind of fun. And then the other one, I mean, everybody knows what a timeline is. My kids, who are 11 and 13, know what a timeline is. And so again, giving this context of something that people are familiar with, and then sharing these primary sources at that point in time is just an easy way to tell a story about the collections we have in MDL. And the history of photography was pretty fun to make, I have to say. Especially that one, because they're kind of goofy. Like, what is he doing with his hood? I don't know. Yeah, so we have 7 timelines, and we have about 10 maps right now. So some of them are fully state, like a story about the whole state. Some of them are more specific, and that goes with the timelines as well. Like we have a Duluth history timeline because we have a lot of content on Duluth. But then we also have a history of photography, which is a little bit broader. We have an arts and crafts one, things like that. And I should note that MDL is and has many amazing things and many great collections, but we don't have everything. And so the stories that we can tell are kind of limited by the collections that we have. So you might say, wouldn't it be great if we had something on Laura Ingalls Wilder, you know, an exhibit on her? Wouldn't that be great? Everybody knows about her. But we don't have content about her, so we can't do that right now.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's, you know, we're growing. Maybe someday, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years we will. But currently we do not. So there is a little bit of limitation on that. And then shortly after I started at MDL, about 5 years ago, we wanted to expand our digital storytelling to be more like a full online exhibit. So that's basically taking what you might have in a museum gallery and putting it on separate pages on a website. And so this is just, you probably can't read them all because they're tiny, but this is a selection of the online exhibits we currently have, and some of them are part of a series. So we have 3 exhibits on immigrants, people on the move, immigrant experiences, and preserving culture, because a big strength of MDL's collections are immigrant stories from the pioneers to more recent immigrants in the cities and things like that. So tying those stories together. We also have several war stories exhibits, so if you're really interested in Minnesotans' experiences during different wars, you can check those out. The Korean War is smaller, as you may imagine, the Forgotten War. Many people don't know about it, but we actually do have some really interesting materials on that. And then we are focusing on Minnesota photographers right now. So we have 2. George Newton was kind of in the Duluth area in the Arrowhead, and then Matthias Boo was down by Lanesboro, and we have a couple more that are currently under development. So I'm always working on exhibits and stories like this. We are thinking about America being 250 years old this year as well, and trying to tie into the sort of history of America and what is America and what does that look like here in Minnesota. So that exhibit should be out later this year, hopefully. But yeah, I encourage you to check these out. They provide a little more context and information about the material, so they're not just like one-off little pictures and documents here and there. It tells more of a story. And then, let's see here, what time is it? Oh, good. So one thing that we started a couple years ago is our Contributor's Choice exhibit, and the idea behind this was, again, we are sharing your stuff, but it's still your stuff. So we wanted our contributors to go and say, this is my favorite thing from my museum in your website, and I want to tell people about it. And so we called it Contributor's Choice because we invited our contributors to pick their favorite thing, tell us a little bit about it, and then explain why it's their favorite thing. And so Again, this wasn't me picking my favorite thing, it was them. They know the stuff, they know the stories. A lot of times we don't always get the background information because we just get the descriptions, basically. But there we could say, this is my favorite because it shows a bunch of different types of motorcycles, or something that I wouldn't necessarily pick up myself. So that was a really fun way. It kind of goes to the idea of, have you ever heard of maybe like a gallery guard at an art museum, and they curate an exhibit of their favorite pieces because they're standing with them all the time? It's kind of that idea. And in 2025 was our 20th anniversary edition, and at that point we invited 20 of our founding contributors to do this special edition. And so as you can see, this one was from Nicollet County Historical Society, and this was the bill to remove the Capitol, the draft of it to move it from St. Paul to St. Peter, and which never happened because somebody absconded with the bill, so it couldn't get passed. Oh, politics, right? But anyway, that was a kind of a fun thing to showcase because that was one thing that Nicollet County really wanted to share more widely when they joined MDL, and because they joined MDL, more people could learn about this and see the original document, which is cool. So, and then something we also started last year was this creative writing contest. And so obviously people look at MDL and they think, oh, this is a great thing if I'm learning about history. I want to learn about history, especially for students. But there's a lot more engagement that you can get if you think more creatively. And so for a couple of years we talked about using MDL items to inspire creative writing stories. And so we'd heard like Montana, they have a digital collection out there, they did something like this. And so we decided in honor of our 20th anniversary, we would run this creative writing contest. And the idea behind it was people could find whatever they wanted in MDL, use it as inspiration for a creative writing story, or a poem, or even like a letter, and then write. We had a 750 word count, so it wasn't very long, and we invited people, young people and adults, to participate. And I didn't know how many people would join. I was nervous that being the first time no one would actually participate, but we got 86 different stories. And that was like 34 adult writers and 50 something, my math is not working right now, but 50 some students. And I think some teachers actually assigned it for their classes, because the day before Thanksgiving I got about 30 submitted on my form, and I said that's a lot of stories. But it was great because it shows that these amazing pieces of history can be used to inspire creativity and empathy even, and all the sort of inspiration that they can come. So we had a judging system. We judged it on writing quality, as well as how well it kind of explained what was going on in the picture, and audience appeal. So our judges picked the top 10 from each category, youth and adult, and then we published them in our website under the exhibits tab. So if you want to go check them out, they're super fun. Some of my favorites, the kids are on the top. One of my favorites is this picture from like the 1980s of a deputy sheriff, and the story is called Deputy Ben, and it has like onomatopoeia, and this kid is going like wee-oo, wee-oo, like writing it out in his story, and it's perfect, it's wonderful. And then many of them are really, really interesting, and it's just fun. Again, similar to Contributor's Choice, it's not necessarily what I would write, but what other people wrote, which is really inspiring and creative. So that is a pretty cool thing that we did. It was a lot of work though, so I don't think I'll do it this year. Okay, so now I just want to take a little time to showcase a couple fun highlights from the Nicollet County collection. As you can see with these numbers, the majority of the NCHS collection items are pictures. Still images, so that includes postcards, photographs, slides, there's several slides, and even color print photos, things like that. So we'll start with this. This is a stereograph. And stereographs are really unique because they were designed to be held in a little holder, which probably you all know, but that makes it look like it's 3 dimensions. And so this was like parlor games back in the day, but they're also some of the earliest photos we have of Minnesota because they were made in the 1860s. So we don't know exactly when this was. Is my mic? Is it better over here? Okay, so this we don't know exactly. Oh no. I think I'm better over here. Okay, let's try this again. We don't know exactly when this is dated, but it's still very cool evidence of early St. Peter when this was a steamboat landing in a warehouse back in the day. And they're often printed, like there's information printed on the back too, so that also gives you more details. There's another set of prints that we have that were drawn by Seth Eastman, and he was a U.S. Army officer stationed at Fort Snelling, and he also was an illustrator. So he made several artistic illustrations, pictures of what he saw or what he claimed to see in Minnesota, and many of them included lots of depictions of Native Americans. There's a Dakota village, and there's a couple others that I can't remember right now. But this is the Valley of the St. Peters. And they're really interesting to see because, again, it's this artistic vision of what Minnesota looked like before it was settled, pretty much. And so I think there's like 15 or so, 15, 20? 17. See, I was around there. 17 in MDL that were drawn by Seth Eastman, which is really cool to see. And these pictures are called cabinet cards because they were about this big and they would be displayed in a person's cabinet because they're nice. The other thing that's fun is that many of them were studio portraits like this one, but some of them were also landscapes, or like if someone built a new building, then you take a picture and then you'd put it on a cabinet card. So they're usually in really good shape because they're mounted on it's like cardstock. And they're very like illustrated. They're often, like this is actually metallic, so it's like really fancy looking. And some of these, like this is scalloped edges. And so again, these two pictures, we do have identification. This is Mr. Bean and I think his son on their farm. And this is Ella and Grace Ribble, and they're the daughters of the photographer, which is pretty cool. But the thing that's fun, that even if you don't necessarily know who is in the picture, because they include the information about the photographer or the studio or the location, you still get information from the picture. But yeah, these are some of my favorites, I should say. Well, and the other thing that's fun about MDL is that we have color. We have more modern images. This is a color slide from 1965. It's very red, I apologize, but that's how it looks. But I just wanted to highlight it to show that we don't have like an age limit. We have actually quite recent things in MDL because we don't have this sort of arbitrary, it has to be 20 years old if it's going to be history. It's anything that a contributor thinks would add to our collections can be added, potentially. But we also have a lot of other unique types of photographic formats. Like this is a color slide. We have negatives. We have transparencies. We even have the lantern slides. Have you ever seen those? Those are pretty cool. So we have also digitized a lot of different formats that you might not be able to see otherwise because it's very small or backwards. So that's a flood, if you couldn't tell. And then, of course, postcards are some of our most popular formats because they're both photos and text. Not all of the postcards we have a message on them, but a lot of them do, and it's super fun. This one says, "Friend Duke, this is how we looked last summer, but I ain't quite as fat now after being in for 1 month." I don't know, maybe he was in the army or something. And then they're identified on their cute little baseball nicknames, like this is Hans and Dirty and Catcher. Anyways, so those are some of my favorite things because they have a lot of like textual information as well as visual information in one package. And Again, so in the Nicollet County collection doesn't have as many documents, but the ones we have from you guys are pretty great. Like, this is a first-person perspective letter of someone who fought in the U.S.-Dakota War of 1862, Lieutenant Thomas Van Etten, and he talks about one of the battles that he was in. He says, basically at the beginning, "I'm sorry I haven't written in a while, but once you know what I've been doing, you'll understand why," which he's been very busy. And again, these handwritten texts have all been transcribed, so if you wanted to share it with someone who doesn't read cursive or can't quite figure out the word nevertheless, they could find it in the transcript. So this one is a really interesting letter. And this one also is kind of a cool certificate which connects someone from the St. Peter area, Eugene St. Julian Cox, with wider things that were happening in the country, like the Civil War. And it was signed by Commander-in-Chief Alexander Ramsey down here at the bottom. So that's one thing that I really like to say about MDL, especially when I'm talking with teachers. They say, "I'm not teaching Minnesota history, I don't care about Minnesota history, but history happens locally." So you have these wide movements, you have the Great Depression, you have wars, you have Industrial Revolution, and you have these big concepts. What does that mean to someone? But if you look at something that's tied to your local community, it makes a bigger impact. So that's something from you guys, which I like. And then my final example, maps are also very popular. This is a map of, it's basically a planning map for the town of Dakota, which is so old it was in Minnesota territory. It was, you can't see it here, but it says 1856. So that was before Minnesota was a state. And it's very optimistic. There were probably some buildings here, but not nearly as many as they planned. And then what happened in 1857 was an economic depression, and it did not survive. And so some of the maps that we have and things like that are beautiful illustrations, great optimistic, like evidence of optimism and the new settlement of the state, but also like standing in for ghost towns and things that never quite came to pass. So maps are fun. And I just kind of love, like, you can't even really see very well, but these are hand-drawn little borders. This is a hand-drawn little building, and then there's a little map up there showing the rivers and how it connects to this area. And there's even a little steamboat right here, which is really cute. So again, it's not all black and white. There's some color in MDL too. Okay. And then I think we have a little bit of time to exit the slideshow and do some searching. Hold on a sec. Okay. All right, so can you hear this way? I think. Okay, so this is the live website, which you probably recognize, but is there anything that anyone in the audience would like me to search for that would be kind of fun? Yep. Tornado. Okay, wow. Let's see.
28 years ago.
That was
my birthday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so you might see this when you work with our site. We've been getting a lot of bots scraping the site for AI and other sort of situations. So you just have to wait a little bit. It will tell you that, or you will tell it that you are a human and not a robot, and it'll be fine.
Excuse me, is it possible to move your mic a little?
Yes, you're right.
Does that help?
Does that work better? Yes. Okay. And I'm a little tall, so yes, so we searched for tornado, which, by the way, I did just post about this tornado today on our Facebook page. So if you haven't found us, that's where we are. So we searched for a tornado. You can see at the very top, there's 696 results for a tornado. Many of them, oh wait, no, okay, so this is just in general tornado. I'm gonna go back one second and just do Nicollet County. So to get to your landing page that I mentioned earlier, it's just under our About, and then contributing organizations, starting with N, and then Nicollet County. So here it is live, like I mentioned. The easiest way to get into the collection items is this big blue button here. And now I can search for a tornado. Here we go. I thought 696 was a bit too many. So. Here we go. So now we have 58 results. They're all photographs. What's kind of cool is that you can look at it as either these thumbnail versions, so you just see the pictures themselves, or you could do more of a list view, so it has more of the details that I mentioned. So I usually like the thumbnail version because I can see more pictures more quickly, but this is also a good option. So for example, this picture, here we have a tornado damaged home. If you scroll down below the viewer, you see any sort of information we might have. In this case, it doesn't necessarily have the address of where this particular house was. Some of them have more information, if it was a church or something downtown. But as you can see, these are some of the blue links that I was mentioning. And so all of these things that are blue have, you can click on and it will go to basically a search result page that also has images that use that same term. So, which again makes sense, they all have the same term, so they're all going to be there also. This, for example, the Arts and Heritage Center tornado damage. And so you can see some of those details. And this one does have a little bit more information, about the building in the background, and then they were originally constructed as high schools. So really the information that is on each page can vary depending on how much the contributing organization knows to begin with.
Can you show us how to zoom in?
Yes, that is a good idea. I was just going to do that. So if you mouse over, your picture, these little buttons show up right here. And so you can zoom in. Once you zoom in, you can click and drag. So if you really want to look at the rubble down here and try to figure out what it is, you can. And it is getting a little blurry on mine too, but many of the pictures are very, very detailed and you can get in lots of details. You can also, I'll back out a little. You can rotate it with that little button too. So if you really want to be upside down, you can do that. And the other thing I wanted to mention, this little square situation on the bottom, then you get the whole. Then you can do the whole thing, just doing the whole screen. So the other thing is, if right now I just have like a touchpad mouse, but if you have a mouse that has a scrolly thing to scroll down pages, that will also zoom the picture, which is super handy. The other things I wanted to show on this page is some of our buttons. So this is the details page. That's the default with all the metadata I mentioned. There's also, if you want to include this in a bibliography or just a list of where you found your information, it has the basic styles of citation information. So if you wanted to do MLA or Chicago style or Wikipedia. And then we also have a download button. And so this download button has a little thumbnail right here. If you click on the little thumbnail, it'll open, if I do it, come on. That opens just the image in another tab. And then from there, you can save it to your desktop and use it, in a presentation or a paper or something like that. Now this is only, this image itself is only 800 pixels wide, so it turns out it works well for things like presentations or sending to email or something like that. But it's not anything that anyone can actually print or put in a documentary, for example. It's low quality. It's good enough quality for sharing, but it's not really something someone could publish and make money off of your materials. So that is one way we protect it. And I should mention, if someone did want to do that, we always connect them with the original contributor so that they can make those arrangements with you guys, because it's your stuff, it's not ours. Any other search term you guys want to look at? Or anything else that I could?
I should do a search for flood.
Flood, okay, good idea. let's go back a little. Okay, so we're still in Nicollet County's collection right now. We'll do flood. So there's a lot of pictures here, and you can see that some of them are older and some of them are newer. So some of them are from that 1965 flood that I showed earlier with the color slides, but some of them are black and white. This is a good time to show, this is our little date slider thingy. So if you really wanted to look at, you know, floods before 1920, you can move the little slider over here, or you can add in your dates down here and then hit apply. And then you'll see that now we only have 22 results from the others, and you can narrow it down to say, I really want to look at, you know, this postcard, which is different than the 1965 one. And all of our postcards kind of have this situation where the front and the back are on one page, so you don't have to flip through. But let's see here. All right, so this is an example of another button that we have. So if we have a photograph, this transcript button won't show up because there's no words on it, it's just a picture. But this, because it does have words on it, the transcript button shows up. If you click on it and scroll down a little bit, you can read the words that are printed on the postcard itself, or written, handwritten.
Interesting.
So sometimes, like some of our text documents, not from Nicollet County, but others are like hundreds of pages long of like city council minutes, for example. So that could take up a lot of a website's page, but you can sort of search it. If you can do a find search term, you can use that on the page, and then it will find the information that you're looking for. So we are obviously, all the time, we are trying to make things more user-friendly and easier to use. And one thing we'd love to be able to have is a text on one side of the same screen and the transcript on just like dual. So have the picture, the scan here, and then the typed out thing here. So you can go back and forth more easily instead of scrolling up and down. Apparently that takes a lot of technical know-how, so we're working on it, but it's not quite. It's an idea, it's not a plan yet, so it is what it is. Is there any other thing?
Do you have anything like grasshopper plagues?
Oh, yes. That is a good question. She asked about grasshopper plagues. And so there are some of my favorite things from Nicollet County. Are these first two postcards on the left. So this one says, God save our home. St. Peter, June 22nd, 1877. And then all the letters are made by the bodies of grasshoppers. And the little beautiful decorations over here. Dead bugs. But you had to be dramatic to get attention and to get support and relief and things like that. There's that.
What year would that have been?
So 1877. Yep. So in the 1870s is when a lot of the farms here were decimated by grasshoppers, and they called them locusts. I'm not sure exactly the actual bug. It was a locust. Yeah. So anyway, that's that. We don't have a ton of we don't have a letter or a diary from someone saying my farm got overrun, but we do have these postcards. And this one's also kind of fun. It's like a political cartoon. And it says Grangers versus grasshoppers, or the irrepressible conflict. So just kind of again getting into the fact that these grasshoppers and locusts just completely took over the farm, and the farmers couldn't do anything about it. So and the poor family in the back is huddling. We do have, I think from Chippewa County, there's kind of like a list of petitions for relief. Like, I lost this many acres of wheat and, you know, all our cows died, things like that. And so there's more documentary evidence. And so I've only highlighted several things from your collection, but it is kind of fun to see, you know, how it compares to other counties or things that were happening to just the state in general, which is also cool. So. All right. Well, I don't want to keep you here too long, so I'm just going to finish. You know, if anyone wants to look at something specifically after, I'll just go to the end. Just let me know, and we can take a look, or you can look on your own time, which is cool as well. Go. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to end in a conclusion about all the reasons why MDL is a great resource for pretty much anybody to use, including organizations such as yourself, but also just people in general. So the biggest thing is it amplifies your reach. So the stories that make Nicolet County special are being exposed to more people across the world. I mean, we look at our Google Analytics to see who visited our website. We get people all over, Sweden, Hong Kong. You know, we can tell where they're coming from, and they're seeing your stuff, which is cool. There's also these unique resources. So one of the criteria we have to digitize things is that it's not currently available anywhere else. So that's why we don't have, for example, newspapers, because they already are digitized elsewhere. We don't usually have yearbooks, things like that. So they're uniquely here in MDL. Then they really kind of, again, like I was talking about, the real people, it makes history seem more real because it happened to people locally. And so you can see how it affected them on a personal, local level. And then, again, like I mentioned, MDL has content from all 87 counties. Certainly we have, you know, fewer things in some areas, but everything is included, and I think it's pretty cool to see it all together. And then it's educational and entertaining. Like, half the time I'm on a scavenger hunt, and I'm like, oh, look, the grasshoppers. Oh, look, you know, a bank robbery, you know, things like that. So there's a lot of rabbit holes. It's very easy to get kind of sucked in the research, as you all probably know. In a physical archive, you do the same thing on MDL. And then, of course, it's completely free to use, free to search. There's no, you know, you don't have to only be in Minnesota. You don't have to pay an access fee. You know, even the contributors don't have to pay us. We do it for them. So that is my spiel about MDL. This is my email. Again, I'm also on our social media pages. We're on Instagram and Facebook. So if any of you are still using social media, please find us, because we have good content. And that's my email. So, questions?
I do.
Yes.
So 2 questions. How about township records? Do you do those if they're not at Minnesota Historical Society, or do you recommend they go to? I'm just thinking about all the small townships that happen in the closets.
Yes. So she's asking about township records, and absolutely. I mean, we can digitize things from any organization. It doesn't have to be the County Historical Society or a big museum. If you know someone at a township, you could have them go through our application process to get things digitized, for sure. We are not part of the Minnesota Historical Society, which sometimes people get confused about. Their grants office kind of filters the legacy grant funding to us, but we don't have to apply for grants through them. We're not a wing of them. We're completely independent. And so it's also not like we're competing with them. We are colleagues and things like that. But if it's not something that MNHS can deal with right now, it might be something that we can deal with, because we have capacity that they might not.
The second question was, is there a sign-on? So there's an essay list. Can I do a login?
Oh, yes, that's true. I forgot to demonstrate the list thing. So we do not have a login sign-in situation, but it saves to the browser that you use. And so if you create a list when you're using that particular browser, the next time you go on that, open that window, your list will be there. So there's no sign-in. But if you do like an incognito one, or if you're on a public computer somewhere else, your list won't be there. But you can export it, you can email it to yourself. That works, yes.
Are you located in St. Paul?
Our physical location is actually University of Minnesota Libraries. So we're in Wilson Library in the basement, which is handy because one of our digitizers is the University Digital Library Services. So we just kind of pick up our things and bring it to them, and they scan it, and then we pick it back up. So, yes.
Do the contributing organizations do any scanning, or do they send all the photos to you?
Yes, that's a good question. So both. And when we first started, no one had really been doing any scanning. So they would send us the physical things, and we work with the University of Minnesota scanning services, and we also work with the Minnesota Historical Society. We pay them to do it, but that's kind of how we do it. But occasionally, nowadays, organizations are doing more scanning, and so sometimes they'll give us what's called the Born Digital copy of something. So it's already digitized, and if it's at our standards, we will accept it. It has to be like a TIFF file. It has to have high resolution, things like that. So if it's just like a scan that you make on a photocopier, we probably would rescan it. But no, we take care of all the digitization, which is super handy, especially for really weird formats like audio cassettes or beta tapes or things like that nobody knows how to play anymore. We'll take care of the digitization for that. So that's a good question.
And so your money, will it run out if the legacy ends?
We try not to think about that. Yes. Yeah, so.
Yes, next time.
Right, so yes, if the legacy amendment, I think it's scheduled to run out in 2032, something like that. Make sure your representatives and senators know that this is something that we need in the state to continue, and then make them make another version of that so that we can continue to do this kind of work, and that you can too here. So, yes?
You can't add another, if you're logged in, you can't add something, or you can't delete nothing, can you? That you're looking at on it?
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we have a lot of back-end database management stuff that we manage at our offices that you can't delete anything. It's all saved. Yep.
What if somebody using that notices that there is a mistake, print mistake or something?
Mm-hmm.
Do they contact you?
Yes.
And then you can go in and make a change?
Yep.
If it's verified?
Yes, that's a good question. If you see something that's an error that could be fixed, or if you, for example, if we say it's an unidentified person, but you know that's Grandma Grace or whatever, then you can reach out to us. We always run it by our contributing organization, again, because we don't want to make a change that maybe is inaccurate. But usually they're like, yes, great, I didn't know that detail, let's add it. So, yeah, so it's all sort of a communication thing. And we have a contact us form on our page. We have what's called a metadata librarian who does all the sort of words all the words that you see on the site, she uploads. So, yes.
How long does it take you get a little packet from us? How long does it actually take to get it ready and put it on the website?
Well, it's a bit of a give and take. So it often depends on many different moving pieces. And so if it comes to us, we have to make sure that there's capacity at our scanning sites. So maybe they have a little backlog of materials. We have to get in the line for that. But, in a perfect world, it would take a couple weeks for them to scan it, and then we give the scans back to the organization, and then it depends on the organization and how much time they have to fill out our spreadsheet with all the information. And so a lot of times, we have some projects that we've been waiting on the spreadsheet for years now, and not you guys. You guys are great, but we have some organizations that we continually have to follow up because we can't upload it until we get that information. And then occasionally, if there's like a transcript needed, then we also have to pay someone to do that, and then that might take a little bit of time. But in a perfect world, if you give me 50 pictures and you know what they are, it could be 2-3 months. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much, everybody. This has been great. Again, you can reach out. But have fun. Oh, yeah. There you go.
Do you want to close out? Oh, thanks, Denny. Thanks everyone for coming tonight. Thank you, Stephanie, for the amazing presentation. You can always come to one of our history hangouts that happens once a month too, and we can always talk some more about the Minnesota Digital Library, and we can have some fun with that. Our friend Bob Sandine, of course, is a big fan of the Minnesota Digital Library, and we always go down rabbit holes with this stuff too, so Stephanie's not alone in that one. Anyway, again, thank you all for coming. There are plenty of bars and some coffee and lemonade, so take one for the road, please. And we hope to see you at the site soon, and thanks for coming to the annual meeting. Drive safely.